I will talk about an experience that we had, which is Vaccinal LT, and of course a lot of people refer to ILT, but if you're really familiar with the disease, we just call it LT because anyway, but a Vaccinal outbreak that we had in Alabama back in, began in 1998, and before that we'd not had LT in Alabama since 1984, and we learned a lot. Anyway, a couple of things is infectious laryngiotracheitis. It's a highly contagious disease of birds of all ages caused by herpes virus 1, characterized by rapid spread of respiratory distress. And in susceptible birds, the mortality rate can be as high as 70%. Oh, and I need to go back and tell you really how does this go in with the precautionary principle. 2 weeks ago, in the diagnostic lab where I work, these are tracheas from organic birds in northwest Alabama. That because the fellow he's really truly concerned about modern agriculture, and so he's using the Serengeti model. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that, where the cows go across first, and then the chickens come across, and they eat the dung beetles and things like that. Really pretty. But anyway, he had these birds, and he was losing his birds, and he came to us and he said, "I'm losing birds." They did have LT because the person he bought those from vaccinated the pullets before he bought them. They also had MG, MS, coryza, and cholera. You pick your poison. But anyway, that's LT. But as we think about it, in Vaccinal, it's very important that we say that Vaccinal is associated with or having anything to do with vaccine or vaccination, because it's real important that we don't have field strain LT, is we have Vaccinal LT, and this has been fingerprinted on various occasions to make sure that what we find in the birds is exactly identical to that found in the vaccine that's out there. But avian influenza, closely related, a highly contagious disease that affects the respiratory tract, digestive tract, nervous tract of many species of birds. The mortality rate can be 90 to 100% within 48 hours of the onset. But there are striking similarities between these two diseases, mostly because they have relatively short 3 to 10 days, depending on what, you stretch it a little further out to 14 on some of them, depending on what sources you look at. Some of them within 48-hour incubation period. But anyway, short incubation period. They're readily transferred on fomites. That's very important. High mortality to susceptible birds, and then the disposition of the birds become problems. Okay, I would like to welcome you all to my home of Coleman County, Alabama. Coleman County, Alabama at one time was, I don't know if there's scientific proof of this, but at least talked about to be one of the most concentrated counties of poultry farms in the world. This is about a 2.5 by 3.5 picture of Coleman County, and if you can see, there's poultry farm here, here, all over it's just a little community out in Coleman County where there's poultry farms everywhere, and so extremely concentrated area of poultry farms. So the formula for a train wreck, in my opinion, is when you take a highly contagious disease of poultry and you introduce it into a highly concentrated area of poultry farms, not good. And so that's kind of what we had back in '98 when this happened. I don't know if y'all remember '98, November of '98, what you were doing back then. But it was Thanksgiving week. It was Thanksgiving right there. The what we considered to be the index flock, and probably wasn't the index flock, by the way, because as we talked to people after that, we found out, well, we lost several hundred birds right the day that they were going to slaughter. But anyway, they were processed right here. The lab diagnosis was the day before Thanksgiving, so we began work the day after Thanksgiving in doing the epidemiology and field work on this. The index flock that was always considered to be the index flock was right here. We thought possibly that because there was some backyard poultry avian athletes, if you will, that go and compete in events. They were right here, but those were all purchased and tested, and they all tested negative. It's amazing, though, when you need to purchase those birds, how much of their value increases. They were purchased by the companies, and I think at about $100 a bird. So anyway, but this was where it began. And then this row goes to the processing plant. This was the number 2 case because it was on the road. And then the third, right there on the way to the processing plant. Because when they were on the way to the processing plant, we really didn't know that they were just spreading everything everywhere. Then the fourth case, right there. And so we had 8 cases from the end of November through December, and then it really kind of ignited and caught fire. But the other thing I'll tell you is one of the things that we did as we worked out in the field is we would take, let's say that this would be our positive, and we would take a grid map and we would go 3 by 3 with a positive farm in the center, and we would find out everything we could about the farms out there. Whose farms were they? What integrator on the farm? How old were the birds? Could they pull those birds early and process them? Actually, we ended up, because at the time Wayne farms were growing some really big older birds, and when they need to be pulled, and this is, of course, Gold Kiss is not out there anymore. They kind of been purchased by Pilgrims, but Gold Kiss was doing some small birds, and the companies even worked together to get birds out of the community. But anyway, so it was off to the races. I want to talk a little bit about contributing factors. That number one, this is, and again, if you look at this, and if you looked at avian influenza, and you thought about just how could we overlay these things, and the transfer on fomites is really important. But it was just being a good neighbor that transmitted it. Shane Bailey's farm right here. Tammy Easterwood's farm right here. Tammy grew for Gold Kiss. Tammy came and helped Shane get his waterers up before they caught the chickens. Guess who got it from that way? Service personnel. As I said, Barry Rasco's service person came by and then went to 7 other farms that all became positive. Utility and repair people. You know, they're out at all these different farms. The problem is always just this incubation and shedding period before the birds become ill. Once they become ill, everything's good. You know, everything's off limits. But prior to that, I had the privilege of going. I was a field VMO at the time. I had the privilege of going and talking to all these people. You know, you're positive for LT? Yes, we do. We lost 12,000 birds today. That was, and I'm gonna tell you, early on, it really hit those birds hard. And I went to talk to one family, and the lady said, "I've been sitting here in the kitchen crying. My husband's been back in the back room drunk ever since this happened." But you talk to them and you try to find out how this happened. You say, "Have you been anywhere?" "No, we never go anywhere. We just don't go anywhere." And I'm thinking they must have heard my foreign animal disease talk about going on missionary trips to overseas, but they don't. But let me tell you, this popular in every little community where at 9 o'clock in the morning you can see all kinds of pickup trucks. They're there solving the world's problem, and they've still got chicken feathers and chicken manure on their tires. I talked to these one people. We never go anywhere. Never go anywhere. "Oh, by the way, but we heard so and so had LT." I said, "Where'd you hear that?" They said, "Well, we was at the Little League ball game the other night," and so that's they were talking. You know, and people go to church. Walmart. That is our Walmart in Coleman right there, and everybody goes to Walmart. If my wife goes 3 days without going to Walmart, they call and ask if she's sick. But anyway, off the farm employment. We did, and this is, I guess it's okay to use non-scientific surveys. Everybody else does. But we had one of the fellows that worked with Dr. Fraser and I that was doing his master's in public health, and so we got the people there to do a survey about off-farm employment. And so there really wasn't enough respondents for it to be scientific, but that's in the small print. This is not scientific. Over a third of the poultry farmers in Alabama, that if your main job is a poultry farmer, you drive a school bus. You know why? Insurance. Insurance. They've got that off the farm driving a school bus. So here's what you got, is you've got what the typical practice would be is in the afternoon before you went back to pick up that load of kids, is you stopped by your poultry houses on the way out to make sure everything was okay. Then you went and drove a school bus where a third of your kids live on poultry farms. So that was another way that it spread. This incomplete vaccination coverage. My cousin was working at the time with the company that he grew for, and he said, I don't know how we didn't do that right, because he said we pumped it in. We didn't use a medicator. It's Paul Holmes, Dr. Berry. Paul said, he said, I don't know how we didn't do it right, but I can tell you this: when they vaccinated with this live vaccine, they covered this house pretty well, and Jerry lost 12,000 birds in that house because the vaccine, because you got that virus out there. Nothing like when you're trying to stop a disease that's caused by a vaccine is to put more vaccine virus out there. But it's part of the plan, part of how it works. But anyway, and then you got your non-commercial people. A fellow named Adam Thompson. He grew these little banty-looking chickens that had legs that long. I don't know, all these kind of show chickens. Adam bought a rooster out of North Carolina that they vaccinated before they shipped it. Adam didn't have a clue why he was losing all of his birds. And I'm not sure what he did, but when they would die, he would just take them out and throw them up on top of the roof of the barn there. Know why? But he lost a bunch of birds and finally got them. And finally took one to the lab. So you got a lot of that. Let me tell you, this bird right here I got this not long ago. It belongs to Marion Fry. They live in one of the nicer houses, one in the nicer areas of the county. Her husband's a very successful businessman, but because Marion does not want to consume the chemicals and the hormones associated with, she's got non-commercial poultry. And then you've got off-farm operations. We're the #1 cattle county in the state of Alabama. This is just a sign, is that they have the Sweet Tater Festival down at Crane Hill every year because we're a big sweet potato county. Now the reason I put this is because there was a grower who got LT. We talked to him, he said, I have no idea, I'm never around other poultry farmers. Never around. This was in the spring when they were planting their sweet potatoes. What about sweet potato farmers? He said, oh yeah, I'm around sweet potato farmers. But the sweet potato farmers are also other poultry farmers. So anyway, they don't even think about that. Farm tours, my aunt and uncle were in the poultry business for years. Anybody that wanted to see the inside of their poultry farm, they were just glad to show up. Go in there and pick up the chicken if you. And so there was really no biosecurity. Come on in. Just kind of the open door policy. We do need to educate people. We don't, but we need that. All right. So anyway, and then farm density involving varying ages and companies. Because when you've got that and you've got all these ages, you can never do this all in, all out. It never burns itself out. And so it just goes on. Now, I will say that avian influenza would burn itself out if you left it out there. But with this, it was just you could never get everything out of there. So changes have resulted in Alabama because of this, and they would be actually effective and help us if avian influenza ever became a factor, broke out. Number one is there's more communication between or among all the stakeholders. The Alabama Poultry Health Task Force was created because of this LT outbreaks that we dealt with, which involves Dr. Fraser and the state laboratory system. It involves the Poultry and Egg Association. It involves the commercial electric people are represented. And then of course the commercial groups themselves, the integrators, as well as some of the non-commercial backyard. So that the communication that wasn't out there before is out there now. And then you got biosecurity education and plans that we didn't have before. People are now not so much about, hey, you've never been on a poultry farm, come on into our house. As a matter of fact, you'll go a lot of places and they've got the biosecurity sign that says, keep out. And even after we started with this, there are locks that go across drives that go down to poultry houses. It made a huge difference there. State veterinarian, Dr. Fraser, now controls vaccines. That was one of those things that a lot of the non-commercial people were getting the chick embryo vaccine. They were vaccinating, and then you just got hot virus out there, and it's off to the races. Now, and as a matter of fact, one of the last ones we had was one of the commercial Leghorn growers, and he was buying it out of Georgia and bringing it in and just kind of keeping it out there. But now you cannot. Dr. Fraser controls the use of that vaccine. And so then also the method and timing of the commercial Leghorn vaccine program, because we felt like that was kind of a smoldering area that they kept going with this. The way they would vaccinate is they would vaccinate these birds early on, and the first time with the chick embryo, and then maybe later on and because they wouldn't sell all in and all out. They'd move some out, they'd bring some in, then they would do the eye drop vaccine. You know how that goes. It's not always the best and brightest that are doing those vaccinations. And so they vaccinate some they don't. Sometimes they'll eye drop them twice. But those birds, because you still probably had the shedding of this chick embryo origin virus out there, and then you'd get some LT, and so that kind of kept it out there. But they've changed the way they do that now, and so that has been helpful. And then we came up with a epidemiology form, and this is just some of the questions that we had on there that we'd go and ask people that would kind of make them think about, when did you first notice? Describe the mortality. Was it all at once? Was it over a period of time? What symptoms? Just different things like that. We've talked to them about, did they clean their house out? All these kind of things that would help us to know ways that disease may have been spread. That was another question we had. How far is it to the nearest Leghorn farm? And backyard birds. So those are the kind of things that we were able to come out with and try to find out.